Bronte sisters. The Brontes were a remarkable literary family of the 19th century, hailing from the village of Thornton and later associated with Haworth in the West Riding of Yorkshire, England. This extraordinary family produced three talented sisters, Charlotte, Emily, and Anne, who are celebrated as both poets and novelists. Initially, they adopted male pseudonyms Currer, Ellis, and Acton Bell when publishing their works, reflecting the prevalent gender biases in the literary world. Their writings, marked by passion and originality, quickly garnered attention. Notably, Charlotte's novel Jane Eyre achieved the first significant success, while Emily's Wuthering Heights, along with Anne's The Tenant of Wildfell Hall and other works, were later acknowledged as literary masterpieces. The siblings, including their brother Branwell, enjoyed a close knit relationship during their upbringing. In their formative years, they nurtured their vivid imaginations through storytelling and collaborative play, inventing a complex imaginary world. Later, they channeled their creativity into writing increasingly intricate stories within this fictional realm. The loss of their mother and two older sisters had a profound impact on their lives and deeply influenced their literary endeavors. Their relatively isolated upbringing, rooted in a religious family, further shaped their distinctive literary perspectives. To this day, the Bronte family home in Thornton remains a place of literary pilgrimage, and the Haworth parsonage where they resided is now the Bronte Parsonage Museum, attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors annually. Charlotte Bronte, the eldest of the surviving Bronte siblings, made an indelible mark on English literature. Her literary journey commenced when she enrolled in Roe Head School at the age of 14. After briefly leaving school, she returned in 1835 to teach her sisters Emily and Anne before taking a position as a governess in 1835. In 1839, she served as a governess for the Sigwick family. Despite these career endeavors, Charlotte and her sisters' real passion lay in writing. Their first publications in 1846, using male pseudonyms, marked the beginning of their literary careers. Although her initial novel, The Professor, faced publisher rejections, her second work, Jane Eyre, published in 1847, achieved resounding success. The sisters eventually revealed their true identities in 1848, earning recognition in London literary circles. Tragically, Charlotte Bronte's life was cut short. After marrying in June 1854 and becoming pregnant, she passed away on March 31, 1855, likely due to hyperemesis gravidarum, a severe complication of pregnancy characterized by excessive nausea and vomiting. Notable works by Charlotte Bronte include Jane Eyre, poems by Currer, Ellis and Acton Bell, Shirley, A Tale, The Professor, and Villette. Emily Bronte, often referred to as the Sphinx of literature, made a name for herself as a writer driven purely by personal satisfaction rather than a desire for fame. Her intrinsic shyness was so pronounced that she would silently leave conversations. With her lone novel, Wuthering Heights, and her poems characterized by raw, elemental power, she ascended to the literary zenith. Despite her relative obscurity during her lifetime, posterity has elevated her to the upper echelons of English literature. Simone de Beauvoir, in The Second Sex, identified Emily Bronte as one of the few writers, alongside Virginia Woolf and occasionally Mary Webb, who authentically grappled with the untamed forces of nature. Emily possessed an intense love for the wild moors around Haworth, where she delighted in wandering through the rugged landscapes. In September 1848, her health rapidly deteriorated, eventually succumbing to consumption. In her final days, she declined treatment with only a visit from a London doctor as her relatives instead. Although a persistent legend suggests that she died on the dining room sofa, there is no contemporary evidence to support this claim. The idea that she left an unfinished manuscript subsequently destroyed by Charlotte to avert controversy akin to the response to Wuthering Heights has some backing in several documents. However, no definitive proof corroborating this theory has ever been found. Anne Brontë, the youngest member of the Bronte literary family, achieved recognition as an English novelist and poet. She was the daughter of Maria and Patrick Bronte, a humble Irish clergyman within the Church of England. Anne spent most of her life in Haworth with her family, but she did attend a boarding school in Mirfield between 1836 and 1837. From 39 to 1845, she lived away from home working as a governess. In 1846, she, along with her sisters, published a book of poems under their pseudonyms, and she subsequently authored two novels under the pen name Acton Bell. Her initial novel, Agnes Grey, was published in 1847, and it was followed by The Tenant of Wildfell Hall in 1848. The latter work is considered one of the earliest feminist novels. Anne Bronte's life was cut tragically short at the age of 29 as well, most likely due to pulmonary tuberculosis. Following Anne's passing, her sister Charlotte edited Agnes Grey to rectify issues from its initial publication but prevented the republication of The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Consequently, Anne is not as widely recognized as her siblings. Nevertheless, both of her novels are deemed classics of English literature. Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre, penned by English author Charlotte Bronte under the pseudonym Currer Bell, was first published on October 16, 1847 by Smith, Elder and Co. in London. A year later, the first American edition appeared, courtesy of Harper and Brothers in New York. This literary classic unfolds as a Bildungsroman, following the life journey of its eponymous heroine Jane Eyre. Her experiences encompass the challenges of childhood, her growth into adulthood, and her passionate love affair with Mr. Rochester, the enigmatic master of Thornfield Hall. The novel commences with Jane Eyre, a 10-year-old orphan living with her uncle's family following the death of her parents due to typhus. In this new home, except for the nursemaid, Jane experiences isolation and alienation from her relatives. Her situation takes a drastic turn when she is sent to Lowood Institution, a charity school characterized by its harsh conditions. Lowood lives up to its bleak name, becoming a significant low point in Jane's young life. Nevertheless, despite the adversity she faces, Jane manages to nurture her inner strength and develop resilience. After enduring several years as a student and later a teacher at Lowood in her early adulthood, Jane musters the courage to embark on a new chapter in her life. She secures a position as a governess at Thornfield Hall, a decision that sets the stage for her fateful encounter with the charismatic and enigmatic Edward Rochester. At Thornfield, Jane assumes the responsibility of caring for young Adele, the daughter of a French dancer who was one of Rochester's previous mistresses. During her stay, she forms a close bond with Mrs. Alice Fairfax, the amiable housekeeper. As the story unfolds, Jane's affection for Rochester deepens, despite his impending marriage to the snobbish Blanche Ingram. Eventually, Rochester reciprocates her feelings and proposes to her. However, the wedding day brings a shocking revelation as Jane discovers that Rochester cannot legally marry her. He already has a wife, Bertha Mason, who has descended into madness and is confined on the mansion's third floor due to her violent outbursts. Rochester's tragic past explains the eerie occurrences Jane has experienced at Thornfield. Feeling deceived by this revelation, Rochester pursues a relationship with Jane, suggesting they live together in France as husband and wife despite the legal obstacles. However, Jane's principled nature compels her to decline the offer and she escapes Thornfield. Jane's life takes an unexpected turn as she finds refuge with relatives who were until then unknown to her. St. John, a dedicated clergyman among her newfound kin, offers her employment and eventually proposes marriage. He suggests that she accompany him to India as a missionary. Initially agreeing to the journey but not as St. John's wife, Jane faces mounting pressure to reconsider her decision. In her moment of doubt, she pleads for divine guidance, and a compelling call from Rochester interrupts her contemplation. Jane rushes back to Thornfield, only to discover the estate in ruins, consumed by fire, which Bertha had ignited before her fatal leap to her death. In the process of attempting to save Bertha, Rochester was severely injured and left blind. Reunited, Jane and Rochester unite in marriage. As time passes, Rochester partially regains his eyesight, and the couple welcomes the arrival of their son. Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre immediately captured the public's attention upon publication. The novel was initially presented in 3 volumes as Jane Eyre, an autobiography, with Currer Bell listed as the editor. This work was celebrated for its unique narrative style, as it employed a first-person perspective, with Jane Eyre occasionally addressing the reader, creating a compelling sense of immediacy. The novel's enduring appeal can be attributed to its unconventional heroine Jane, who embodies qualities of independence and self-reliance, defying societal norms and triumphing over adversity. Furthermore, Jane Eyre is distinguished by its blending of diverse literary genres. It artfully navigates Jane's complex choice between her emotional needs and ethical responsibilities, falling within the realm of moral realism. Simultaneously, the novel delves into the Gothic tradition as it recounts Dane's escape from a potential bigamous marriage and the fiery demise of Bertha Mason. Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, published under the pseudonym Ellis Bell in 1847, is a classic novel set in the moody landscape of West Yorkshire. It revolves around the intertwined lives of two landed gentry families, the Lintons and the Onshaws. The core of this novel is the tumultuous relationships within these families, especially involving Heathcliff, Onshaw's adopted son. Influenced by Romanticism and Gothic fiction, Bronte's masterpiece created quite a stir. Initially, the reception of Wuthering Heights was mixed, with polarized reviews due to its depictions of mental and physical cruelty. It was controversial for its time, challenging Victorian morality and societal norms. Moreover, it defied conventional religious and moral values, pushing the boundaries of acceptability. The novel's publication history is intriguing. Thomas Newby, the publisher, accepted Wuthering Heights and Anne Bronte's Agnes Grey even before the tremendous success of their sister Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. However, they were published later. After Emily's death, Charlotte took charge and edited the second edition of Wuthering Heights, which was published in 1850, finally revealing Emily Bronte as the true author. Despite the initial confusion about its authorship, the novel went on to inspire numerous adaptations across various media. Notably, English singer-songwriter Kate Bush's song Wuthering Heights pays homage to this literary masterpiece. Emily Bronte's groundbreaking work first appeared in London through Thomas Courtly Newby's publication. It comprised the first two volumes of a three-volume set that also included Anne Bronte's Agnes Grey. The authors were initially identified as Ellis and Acton Bell. It was not until 1850 that Emily's true name graced the title page of a commercially edited edition. The novel's unusual structure puzzled many critics, and its raw, intense portrayal of emotion led some to assume a male authorship due to its violence and passion. Wuthering Heights was not received with unanimous acclaim. Its unconventional depiction of immoral passion was heavily criticized. Over time, however, it emerged as one of the most significant works in English literature. Unfortunately, Emily Bronte never got to witness the extent of her novel's fame, as she passed away a mere year after its publication at the tender age of 30. There is mention of a second novel, though no trace of it has ever been found. Some speculate that Emily or a family member might have destroyed the manuscript when she fell ill and couldn't complete it. There is also the possibility that the letter referring to a second novel could have been intended for Anne Bronte, who was already working on her second novel, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Summary and analysis. Wuthering Heights is a complex novel with intricate relationships and themes that unfold through a series of narratives. It begins with the introduction of Lockwood, who rents Thrushcross Grange, a beautiful estate in Yorkshire. Through conversations with the housekeeper, Ellen, Lockwood learns about two local families and their entangled histories. In the late 18th century, a farmer named Onshaw encountered a homeless child in Liverpool and brought him home to Wuthering Heights. This child, named Heathcliff, became part of the Onshaw family, which consisted of Mr. Onshaw, his son Hindley, and daughter Catherine. Despite initial resistance from Hindley, Catherine developed a deep bond with Heathcliff. Their relationship was, however, marred by Hindley's growing resentment. The story unfolds as Mr. Onshaw's health deteriorates and he passes away. Hindley, now the head of the household, mistreats Heathcliff, who once held a special place in Mr. Onshaw's heart. Catherine, caught between her affection for Heathcliff and her desire for social advancement, is eventually drawn to the Linton family at Thrushcross Grange. There she forms a friendship with Edgar and Isabella Linton, which marks the beginning of a widening divide between her and Heathcliff. The arrival of Hindley's wife, Frances, results in further deterioration of the household's dynamics, with Hindley descending into alcoholism and gambling. As a result, Heathcliff's life takes a darker turn. Catherine marries Edgar Linton, primarily for social reasons, even though her heart still longs for Heathcliff. Over the years, the relationships between these characters become increasingly complex. Heathcliff, after a period of absence, returns as a transformed and mysterious figure, gaining a foothold in both Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange. His return marks the beginning of a tumultuous series of events, including confrontations with Edgar Linton over Catherine's affections. Catherine's death, due to complications from childbirth, leaves a void that deeply affects Heathcliff. Meanwhile, Hindley's wife Frances also passes away. The arrival of Isabella Linton, Edgar's sister, leads to a tumultuous and abusive marriage with Heathcliff, from which she escapes to London. In the following years, both Hindley and Isabella meet tragic ends. The narrative then shifts to a new generation focusing on Catherine, the daughter of Catherine and Edgar Linton, and Linton, the son of Heathcliff and Isabella. Catherine, unaware of her relatives at Wuthering Heights, stumbles upon the farmhouse where she discovers the turbulent history of her family. Her initial distaste for Hareton, Hindley's son, reflects the legacy of discord between the two households. As the story progresses, it reveals how Heathcliff orchestrates the marriage between young Catherine and Linton to gain control of Thrushcross Grange, precipitating a new phase of conflict. However, Cathy's eventual return to Wuthering Heights highlights the contrast between the two cousins, revealing Linton's frailty and Cathy's strength. The novel reaches its conclusion with Heathcliff's death, which marks the resolution of the central conflict. His desire to be reunited with Catherine in death underscores the themes of love and obsession. With Heathcliff's death, Hareton and Cathy, representing a new generation, find love and happiness together, signifying the possibility of a brighter future. Wuthering Heights is a haunting and complex exploration of love, class, revenge, and the enduring impact of past generations on the present. The intricate relationships and themes woven throughout the narrative makes it a timeless classic in English literature. Major themes. Love serves as a central theme in Wuthering Heights. While the story revolves around the passionate relationship between Heathcliff and Cathy, their love is far from straightforward. Cathy's declaration, "I am Heathcliff," underscores the depth of her connection. However, their love is marred by betrayal, self-deception, and choices made for convenience rather than passion. Their intense love is never physically consummated, even in the afterlife, where they find no peace and continue to haunt the moorland as restless spirits. The love that blossoms between young Catherine and Hareton represents a milder, gentler version of the love between Heathcliff and Cathy, offering a glimmer of hope for a happier ending. Hate and revenge are pervasive themes throughout the novel. Heathcliff's love for Cathy is mirrored by his equally fervent hatred. His actions are driven by an unrelenting desire for revenge against those he perceives as wronging him. Whether it's Hindley and his descendants mistreating him, or Edgar and Isabella Linton for taking Cathy away, Heathcliff's vengeance knows no bounds. Paradoxically, he also mistreats Catherine's daughter, assuming the role of the archetypal villain by coercing her into marrying his ailing son and subjecting her to cruelty. Heathcliff ultimately achieves his revenge, yet his death reveals the futility of his quest. Alone and yearning for his lost love, he exemplifies the hollowness of his vengeance. While he fulfilled his desire for retribution, his heart's true longing for a reunion with Cathy can only be realized in death. Social class is another pervasive theme, emblematic of the Victorian era's rigid class divisions. The novel portrays the complex impact of social class, which extends beyond mere wealth distinctions. Bronte explores this theme with a sense of ambiguity. On one hand, she suggests that social class is an arbitrary barrier that restricts happiness, while on the other, she demonstrates that disruptions in class structures lead to disorder and conflict. The characters' lives illustrate the profound influence of birth, income sources, and family connections in defining their roles in society, and they often accept these predefined positions. The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. The Tenant of Wildfell Hall is the second and final novel penned by English author Anne Brontë, originally published in 1848 under the pseudonym Acton Bell. It stands out as the most audacious and controversial work among the Bronte sisters' literary creations. Despite its immediate and immense success, it faced a ban from republication in England until 1854, following Anne's death, due to the concerns raised by her sister Charlotte. The novel unfolds through a series of letters written by Gilbert Markham to a friend, providing an account of his encounters with a mysterious young widow named Helen Graham. Helen arrives at Wildfell Hall, an Elizabethan mansion that has remained unoccupied for many years, accompanied by her young son and a servant. In a departure from the societal norms of early 19th century England, Helen boldly pursues a career as an artist, earning her livelihood by selling her paintings. Her secluded lifestyle within the mansion soon becomes the subject of scandalous gossip in the neighboring village, resulting in her social ostracism. Unwilling to succumb to the prevailing scandal, Gilbert Markham befriends Helen, determined to uncover the truth about her past. In the diary provided by Helen, the reader delves into the harrowing account of her husband's moral and physical descent into debauchery and alcoholism within the dissolute aristocratic society. Fearing for her son's future under his father's influence, Helen makes the agonizing decision to flee with her child. Her departure is motivated by a desperate desire to protect her son from his father's corrupting presence. The Tenant of Wildfell Hall tackles themes of marital strife, the professional identity of women, and carries a strong moral message tempered by Anne Bronte's belief in universal salvation. The novel is often hailed as one of the earliest feminist works in literature. It portrays the struggles and resilience of its protagonist, Helen, as she defies societal conventions and early 19th century English law by leaving her husband and securing the safety of her child. Helen's resolute action in slamming the bedroom door against her husband reverberates throughout Victorian England, marking a significant step in the evolving landscape of feminist literature.